From analog.
Hi, Jim. You've a great signal up here. You're 5.9 plus.
You're digital.
We are everywhere you want to be. This is the CQ Blind Hams Podcast.
Good evening, everybody, or morning or afternoon, or whenever you happen to be listening to this Techzoom for January 2025. My name is Robert, NC5R. Welcome to this Techzoom. We are excited to be back with you for a brand new year and a brand new Techzoom. Got a couple of CQ Blind Ham podcasters with me tonight. First of all, we have Joel Case. Joel, if you don't mind, please just take a moment and say hi to everyone.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. This is W0CAS Joel in Pelzer, South Carolina. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. We've got a little weather condition going across the country, and it slowed some of our normal people that show up tonight, but looks like we got a few here with us. And I'm going to let Robert introduce Marvin and tell everybody what Marvin's going to be doing pretty soon.
All right. We have a brand new member of the CQ Blind Hams podcast team who is going to become the executive producer for this podcast and Techzoom and whatever else I guess we come up with in terms of the podcasting world for the CQ Blind Hams network. But we're really happy to welcome Marvin Rush, W5MRR, to this group. And Marvin, please unmute yourself and say hi to everyone, if you will.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are listening. My name is Marvin, and my call is W5MRR. I'm in Southwest Louisiana, and I think the first thing I should do is remind us all that all these things that we do, all the hours and things that Joel has put in, everybody needs help to get all this stuff completed. So remember that. I'm going to need help.
Yeah, for sure. And that reminds me, Marvin, we need to give a huge thanks to Joel for all that he's done for years now for this Blind Ham Bridge and the podcast and everything else. So thank you for all the hours and hours you've put into this, Joel. And I do understand, Joel, if you don't mind saying, you are changing roles or stepping back a little bit, but you're not going away, right?
Oh, no, I'll still be running the website. I'll still be doing the upload to YouTube, the upload to the podcast over on Spotify and, doing things like that. But, I thought it was time to let some fresh minds come in with some fresh ideas and I've been doing this about 5 years, and I think Marvin's going to do a wonderful job bringing in some new guests and some new ideas. So I'm looking forward to it. But I'll be around.
Excellent. Well, welcome, Marvin, and thank you again for all you have done, Joel. We also have Angelo with us, who has done a tremendous amount of work over the years on this podcast, both in hosting this meeting on Zoom and editing podcasts and doing anything else that needs to be done. Angelo, if you can grab a microphone, please, and just say hi to everyone.
Hey, everybody. Good to hear you all in there. And Joel, you do plenty, my friend. We're proud of you, too. And Marvin, thanks for stepping up there. And if I can help you in any way, I'm here, brother. All right, back to you, Robert. You sound great.
Excellent. Thank you, Angelo. Good to have you here as always. Well, I'm excited this evening. I've had the good fortune of talking to our guest presenter for a little while here before starting this Techzoom, and I've already learned that our presenter, whose name is Jeff, who's been a ham for more than 40 years, who has an extra license. Jeff is here to talk to us about some projects that he's currently involved in getting people engaged in amateur radio. And Jeff's already told me that he really believes people need to, we, the other hams, need to get out of our shacks and start reaching out and letting people know about this hobby. We shouldn't just keep it a secret to ourselves. So, Jeff, thank you so much for being here, sir. And if you will unmute yourself and just further introduce yourself and talk to us a bit about some of the things that you're involved in. Thanks again. Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I'm certainly honored to be here. I've been a ham since 1977. Started off in the Detroit metropolitan area. So I got a floor call when I moved down to North Carolina about 2007, after I was one of those people that pink slipped at a job. So my call is K4DKW, Delta Kilowatt Whiskey, and I've had that since we moved down to North Carolina. Yeah, the projects I'm working on, I'm one of those kind of folks that I retired, but I didn't really retire on my own terms, and I needed something to do to keep me busy. So I was looking for something in the area that I could do in terms of a volunteerism. And what I basically decided I was going to do was to see if I could offer amateur radio as either a STEM program or as a after-school program for initially elementary schools, because the kids in elementary schools have a limited amount of opportunities with them. When you get into junior high, there's sports, there's other things that you can do, but elementary schools really didn't have a lot of opportunities for kids. And I stumbled across something that a lot of folks don't know, and it's a group out of Australia, where it was a librarian who happened to be a ham, and she noticed there were some kids that really didn't want to go out and play kickball or whatever they do, or cricket. And she decided she'd just bring in a receiver. And the next thing you know, there's so much interest, she approaches the principal and says, "Is it okay if I start a club here?" And that they've created so many things for kids to do. They have a website that's absolutely unbelievable. And I took their concept and have been trying to get that into some of the schools here in the Cleveland Metroplex. To date, I've given basically presentations and discussions to the tune of nearly 200. And for the last 2.5 years, I've been the control operator for the Communion of Saints Elementary School Amateur Radio Club that we started back at the beginning of 2022. And they have since, with really no experience of any of these kids. We started off with kids grades 3 to 6. And we went through a lot of the things that you need to understand: Q signals, RST, phonetic alphabet, prefixes, and then we put them on the air. And the kids have since talked to 42 states, 24 countries, and 5 continents. They participated in the school club roundup the last 2 years solid, have won it in their category twice and come in second 2 other times. So out of the 4 that they've participated in, they've come in the top 3 each year, and it's done twice a year. Cool. I love it. The kids are great, but it only ties me up 1 day a week. I need some other things to do. So I've approached other schools. I was at another school today, and I have another program that I'm talking about that maybe could offer in Cincinnati or Cleveland or Columbus as a secondary thing through a company that provides after school and summer camps for kids in those cities, as well as the Cleveland Metroplex. But what I'm really here for is to talk to you folks a little bit about the program that I took a chance and made a telephone call to the American Council for the Blind office in Akron, Ohio, and said, "I'd like to talk about having a club at your location." And I have, in all those 180 discussions, I have never been more welcomed openly than this small group of about 15 or 20. But I only started talking to them around Thanksgiving and between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Um, so they're excited to do it. The executive director's on board. I'm ready to go. I've got a number of donations through a couple of companies, DX Engineering being one of them, and Easy Up. I had a ham down in Texas who I found had that VGS card that goes into a 590 SG, and he wasn't using it. So I asked if I could have it, and I now have it in my possession. I have a brand new LDG talking watt meter. So my goal when they resume their activities at the Akron Blind Center is to have a fully operational and fully accessible 590 SG with everything running. So the folks there can not only learn about amateur radio, but eventually be able to operate that radio independent of me having to push the buttons or explain things to them. We'll get there. It's going to take a little bit of time, but this is a pretty upscale group, very open-minded, very excited, and frankly, I think, I don't know if anybody has another program like this nationally, but I haven't been able to find one, so it may be the first one of its kind. So I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a learning experience for me, but if I can handle third to sixth grade kids, I'm pretty sure I can handle some adults, and I think we'll have some fun doing it. My kids,
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. I'd like to ask you a couple questions that just occurred to me just to get your perspective. So erroneously, I think a lot of us, and I'm guilty of this sometimes myself, I think of amateur radio as an old guy's hobby. But you've flipped that on its head and you've gone out and it sounds like excited kids about amateur radios. And they have, cell phones and video games and all these things. What about it do you think appeals to these kids, or what's making these kids get excited about amateur radio?
Well, it's funny. A lot of us had that same feeling that it's an old person's hobby, that there really isn't a lot to offer. Kids, I mean, with cell phones nowadays, you wouldn't think there'd be interest there. But kids, especially this group, like I said, I'm starting from third to seventh and eighth graders. They're starved for something that they can do themselves, that they don't have to be told not to touch. And for all of us hams that have been at it for a while, our perception was, you do Morse code, or you do voice, and that's fine. But when you add digital to the mix, it's mesmerizing to kids. It's something that they can do easily. They understand it. You tell the story behind it about the Mars rover, and that's where this kind of software, I think, was developed for. They love tinkering with things. They love world geography. They like the idea of opening up that box of chocolates and not knowing what's going to be inside. And during the last contest, that week of October, I think 21st is when we did it. While we were on the air, one of the kids was calling CQ, and we had an airline pilot who had just taken off from Metro Detroit on his way to Boston answer our CQ. Those kind of experiences you don't get. And we did a fox hunt last year. They fell in love with it. We were playing around a little bit with Morse code. They got a kick out of the fact that they could send something that nobody else could understand. They had their own language, sort of like when you and I were growing up. If we had family members that came from the old country, and I did, they would speak Italian if they didn't want you to know what it was. It's
Yeah.
nice being able to reciprocate that every once in a while.
Mhm.
They're so open to something like this, understanding how police and fire communicate, understanding how to read the tail on an airplane to figure out where it's originating from. Um, how to even test just a simple test with a VOM to test a frosted light bulb to find out if it works, or even how to test a battery. They don't get that kind of practical stuff at home. They don't get that kind of practical stuff in school because they can't tie it to a particular state requirement. So when you get kids out of what they're used to seeing, these kids are inquisitive. Um,
I can
and
see that. I can see
it's
exactly
it's
how that would be that
yeah,
way,
and
and that's very exciting. And the
it's
schools, I guess, have been open to it as well. You just made a good point. This doesn't fit in with the school curriculum. This doesn't
no.
fit in with what they're tested on. But at least the schools you've approached apparently welcome this kind of activity for the kids.
Yeah, and it's surprising when you go through it. When you my history in dealing with the schools was I approached virtually every district, board of ed, principals in my county, and did most of Cuyahoga County, which is Cleveland proper, and found basically that public schools are so tied to those requirements, they're not interested in anything that doesn't have a direct tie. My next two doors down to me was a teacher who's in my district that's right next to where I'm at, and he basically told me, "Don't bother with the public schools." And I'm going like, "What?" He says, "Don't bother. They can't. They don't have the flexibility. Go call the diocese. Go talk to the Catholic schools." Um, I picked up the phone the next morning. I called the Cleveland Diocese. I said, "Can I talk to somebody about a program I have for the schools?" And they go, "Hold on a second. Jenny's going to her desk." And I'm thinking, this can't be real. The young lady picked up and I said, "Jenny, you don't know me, from a hole in the wall. I just have a program I want to bring to your school. Your kids, I don't want to have your kids pay for it. I don't want your school to pay for it. I don't want their financial situation to dictate their ability to experience this." And she put that out on Friday. And by Tuesday at noon, I had 5 schools on my telephone. And that one school has been with me since that day one. And the other ones, with one reason or not, didn't continue, or I couldn't continue with them. So I'm adding a couple of other school. I'm trying to add a couple of other schools to do this with, but it is predominantly the parochial schools that
Hmm.
go for this because they're looking for inexpensive alternatives besides the status quo.
Makes me
And
sad about the public schools, honestly.
you'll find, yeah, you'll find that most publics or most schools, when you talk about STEM programs, and we all know that ham radio is just full of it. Um, they're only if they can't tie it to a curriculum requirement in their state, they're not interested. So
Yeah.
it's predominant. The only way to get away with it is to put it as an after school program, and then you run it from there. And I've had a lot of success. Matter of fact, I had a couple Facebook responses. One was from a young lady in Western North Carolina over the summer. Or no, it was earlier. It was about the beginning of the school year. And she said, "I really want to start one in my area. But I says, "Well, where are you located?" And she says she was in Whiteville. She was in Whiteville, North Carolina. I says, "Well, it's it's a little tough for a commute for me." But I was able through between the ARRL and a couple of the local clubs, I found a couple people that lived in her area and even in her town who are now teaming up with her and offering that for their kids. And I think we had another one in Eastern Pennsylvania where a teacher was interested, and we found some people that were interested in doing that. But if you don't typically if you're not a teacher in a public school, or if you're or an employee in that public school, you're not going to get into that public school. But the
We have a
private
different
schools,
experience in Dare County, though. Well, because it's a smaller county, the board is approachable and they like it. Our ham club has gotten several kids involved in it, and the
have you?
club is 85 strong and
Where?
growing every day. Dare County,
Dare County, what?
North Carolina.
Where are we going? Dare County? Okay. North Carolina. That's good because it's pretty rare. Um, I see, we all see the benefits. But it takes an awful lot of, it takes a lot of movement sometimes with some of these folks to even, first of all, they don't even know what it is because we're only a quarter of 1% of the population. Unless you got a ham that's in the family or one that got a guy down the street, you've never heard of it.
Right.
So, and because we spend more of our time in our shacks, and I hear that, being a club president for a few years, we're in the public view, we do field day every year. That's one day. That's a couple of days, once a year.
Right.
It's usually not in a real major area. Um, I can appreciate that they think that's good outreach program, but it isn't, and it's not consistent. And you have to have much more visibility than a field day operation to bring people in, especially if you're complaining about the fact that the average ham age is somewhere in the either high 50s or 60s. So
Right.
you
Well,
got
moving on, I want
Yeah.
to get back to the what you're doing with the Center for the Blind there, because
Yeah.
I was kind of fascinated by that. I think that there is something of a history of amateur radio being popular among people who are blind. I think, Angela, you could probably speak to this better than I could, but I know that there were programs in a lot of the state schools for the blind around the country, amateur radio programs. I know when I was getting a dog, multiple dogs actually, from the Seeing Eye up in New Jersey, they had a ham station set up for people
Huh.
to use who were licensed while you were at free time, if you could find any, while you were being trained with a dog.
Yeah.
But it sounds like this was not something that the people, I think you said it was in Akron, there's not something that they had already or that they were
No.
necessarily very familiar with.
I actually reached out to there's supposed to be a ham contingent in the American Council for the Blind. I tried to contact that gentleman a couple of times, never was able to connect with him. So I don't know if there are other ACB programs like this in the country. If there
Yeah, I
isn't,
don't know either, but
they should be.
it's too bad you couldn't get in touch with the ACB amateur radio people, because it is a fairly active affiliate of the American Council of the Blind. But it's too bad, and
Forget
maybe
who
we
it
can.
is, Robert, but the treasurer is on the Blind Hams mailing list, so you might want to post a message there.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to them and see if there's some other program that they're doing. Because frankly, there may be things that I can learn from them, and there may be some things that they can learn from me. Certainly, trying to reinvent the wheel is something that takes significantly a longer time. I've done it, like I said, I haven't done it with this clientele before, but their enthusiasm and warmth certainly gives me all the encouragement I'll ever need to be there on a consistent basis and let these people play radio. But
I
it's
got a question
you know
real quick. Have you ever heard of a ham radio operator named Neil Rapp? Gentleman's name's
Yes.
Neil Rapp. He has a
Yes.
podcast called Ham Talk Live, and he's a school teacher, and he got
Yeah.
an award for being Amateur Radio Educator of the Year, I think it
Oh,
was.
was he? Good for
Yes.
Neil. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, he runs one of the competing clubs for my that I have to fight with every year to win the thing. Yeah, I think he's N2FRC, and he's based out there in North Carolina, trying to think where in North Carolina he's at.
he was from Ohio or somewhere. He was not
Well,
unless he
FR,
moved. He might have moved.
well, I mean, there's I'll swear that he's the guy N2FRC. I'll look him up real quick. If not, then I recognize the name, because I do converse a little bit with the other elementary schools, the ones that compete. No, his name is Mark Reap.
Yeah, this is
a
Rap,
different
R-A-P.
guy.
Yeah, Neil Rap.
I
He's got a
recognize the
podcast.
name. I
Yeah,
just don't know where I've heard it.
Ham Talk Live is his podcast.
Okay.
And I haven't listened to it in a while. I used to subscribe to it. Rob, you ever heard of it?
No.
Yeah, he does a live show on the internet, and he records it and makes a podcast out of it also. But
And
he's
you
friends
said
with
Neil,
Neil Rapp. Yeah, Ham Talk Live.
RAPP? Okay.
Yeah, Ham
Find him.
Talk Live. You might be able to Google the podcast and get his
Okay.
call sign, find out where we're at. He's in Ohio, I believe.
I'd love to talk to him. He may be.
He's friends with Karen Eve Murray. You ever heard of her?
No.
She's with the Amateur Radio Newsline. She's a
Ham Talk
educator.
Live. Okay. I'll
And
look
if
him up.
you're up early in the morning on state, I think they still have the net on 7235. The New York City school system had a bunch of schools getting on the air.
JKJ, that group?
Yeah, yep. Well, he's passed.
Yeah,
I think.
I've talked to them. Yeah, they're about, anytime you want to donate stuff, they'll take it.
Tell them to share the wealth,
Yeah. Yeah, I've gotten a lot of donations and given stuff away to some of the stuff for repair and some of the stuff to put a new ham on the air. Because the spirits put it, give it a new set of give it a new life and keep it out of a landfill.
Yeah, for sure. I also wanted to mention, Jeff, that we on the blindhams.com website, we have a whole lot of fully accessible documentation for that Kenwood TS590 SG. And
Okay.
that would be something that the people at the Blind Center could access, and they could have the manuals in audio format, text format, MP3 format. They're all up there.
Okay, that's good to know.
As well as a couple podcasts where people walk you through every button on that radio, and you're pretty tired
Okay.
by the time you get through that podcast because there are a lot of buttons on that radio.
Yeah, there is. No, that's all helpful stuff.
Also on blindhams.com, there are links to very, very accessible places to study for your license. There's an app that I helped a guy to make accessible. And you can find all those links on blindhams.com.
This Blind Center has really embraced this approach that you made to them, and you're going to get a station up and running pretty quickly there. And it's going to be fascinating to see how people take to it, how they, if people get interested and get excited and start studying for their license and so forth.
Well, I'm hoping that they decide they want to get their licenses. That way I don't have to always be the person that's there. But I'm looking forward to it. I really am. I was sort of disappointed when the director told me that they close in January and February because of the with the weather and having mobility difficulties for getting people there. But it starts back up in March, and it's right now it's not. I would have been at it already if I could, but we've got there. It's just the weather's not going to be conducive for at least the month of January, from what he's told me. So we'll get there. We should be out. We should be on the air in March without a problem. It's just and then we'll start it up weekly and see where it takes us. I'm really looking forward to this. This is really a real special group, and no hesitation whatsoever. I mean, none. They didn't need any more information. They really didn't.
Excellent. If you project a little bit out into the future, you're having success with this work that you're doing. What do you see as the next thing you might tackle, or the next step in trying to further this mission, if you will?
It's a good question. I'm hoping, at least when I started this whole process, I wanted to keep myself busy 3 days a week. And then take what I've done with some of the donations is to purchase, and even with my own money, to purchase a trailer where I can go to a public park and hang a couple of banners and say, "Come on in and learn." I'm looking forward to doing that. Right now there's only me, and with the possibility of collaborating with this young lady who does the school after school programs and they're not clubs. I mean, the things during the summer, the whatever her summer programs are, that's going to force me to try and find hams that are interested in doing what I'm doing in areas that are a little out of my reach. And in the discussions I had with her today, I'm going to have to reach out to the state director, the education director for the ARRL for Ohio to find if local clubs in Columbus and Cincinnati, to see if I can partner with them and extend it there. I don't see I mean, I'm certainly willing and interested if anybody out there wants to do what I'm doing someplace else. I'm willing to certainly work with them as much as I can to help them get to that point. But in terms of trying to do anything further from where I'm at, that's a little harder. But I'll certainly do whatever I can do to make it, to make it happen wherever I can make it happen, because not just for me personally, because I get a kick out of watching these people make their first contact and jump out of the chair. But anybody else that wants to experience that epiphany, and it's worth all the tea in China and all the difficulty of having to knock on doors and not have them open.
Yeah, I love your enthusiasm and
happens.
your excitement about it. I think that's contagious. And I think that's part of why people are excited, because you're excited for them to be excited. And that's just awesome. Is there a good way, if someone is listening to this, is there a good way for somebody to contact you if they want to start up something like this in their area, or if they want to touch base with you about some possibilities? How could someone get in touch with you?
Well, the quickest way is everything is current on QRZ.com. I make them, that my email is available to them, on it all the time. If they want to talk personally, they can send me an email to, tell me what they got in mind, and we can connect up, and I'll work with them for as long as they want to work. I certainly don't want to have somebody like I did, where I went up to that ham's house and he wasn't interested in helping me.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that anywhere, in any interaction that I have. So if somebody else has an inclination to do this, there's no question that I'm on board. It's just a question of, let's get connected. Let's plan some type of how we're going to approach it. But I don't want them to waste their time with a lot of schools who just are just disinterested. Just find, I hate to automatically forward people to parochial schools, but in my state, that's what it is. It may be different in other states. And I'd certainly like I said, the more we talk about it, the more it gets into the public eye. POTA's a real help. If some of these POTA guys are interested in doing a club, how easy that would be.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to put out a challenge. We've got about 1,000 people that listen to the podcast and the YouTube combined. So I'd like to say, and I want to take up this challenge. I Googled the South Carolina School for the Blind and Deaf, School for the Blind and Deaf, and I'm going to call them as soon as this bad weather's over and they're back in school, and I want to see if I can come and bring some equipment and do a demonstration and see if there's any interest in that school. And I think all 50 states, if there's a school for the blind in your state and you're listening to us and you know about it, call them, Say, can I bring some HTs down? Can I bring some all-star notes down? Can I bring an
It's
HF rig down and just show the kids about amateur radio and see if there's any interest? That's a
it,
challenge that I'm putting out.
yeah, because it's out there. And just like I put on my little web page in QRZ, it's they are interested. They just don't know. And it behooves us all to reach out to them. And yeah, it's a little bit of a spitball where you don't know how they're going to react. But you know what? If nothing else, you've gotten out of your shack, you've made some friends, you may have gotten interest. It may not actually come to the point where somebody may be interested in getting a license today, but I've run into an awful lot of people that who may have run into it 30 years ago, got married, had kids. Now the kids have moved away, and now they want to die. Now they want to do it again. These people are out there. We just need to be visible enough for them to find us, and we can make a dent in this. And people are interested, but in this world, if you don't have a way to make it easy to find them, or easier for them to find you, nothing changes. And
Yeah.
we can either be part of that change, or we sit in the gallery and complain about nothing changing. And I just don't want to. I don't belong, and I'm never going to be part of that gallery. It just gets old.
Yeah, I would encourage you, Jeff, and everybody who takes up Joel's challenge to be sure and tell the blindness organization, schools for the blind, and other organizations that you might work with about the blindhams.com website and about the Blind Hams Digital Bridge Network, because with a little bit of equipment, even if you just have an iPhone and a license, you can get on this Blind Hams Bridge and talk to very interesting people out there, and immediately start seeing how you can make friends and establish a social network. So things are happening, but like you said, it's so true. Too many people don't know about it.
Yeah, they don't know about it, and at the same time, we aren't making enough effort to bring them into the discussion. And either we just have to be better at that. Amateur radio doesn't market itself; it never has, and frankly, it needs to. It's relevant. We all know it's relevant. We know it's necessary. And there's a lot of people out there that are interested. They just don't know. And I guess I'm on a little bit of a personal crusade because of my experience, but I'm going to continue to do this. My parents, or my wife, thinks I'm a nut. My kids don't understand it, but that's okay. Like I said, when that person keys up the microphone and talks to their DX station for the first time, even talking to somebody in a country where their grandparents came from, that's it. That's a home run.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
And life isn't full of a lot of home runs, and the goal is to have as many of them as you can. So
absolutely. I guess I wonder, as we begin to I think sort of bring this to a close, is there anybody else who's here online with us now who has a comment or question or anything that you would like to say before we start bringing this to a close?
I do.
Go ahead, Marvin.
Couple of things. One of the really neat things to do is, if you have, and most communities still have them, get a hold of your Boy Scout troops, because there probably still is, but there was a merit badge for amateur radio.
There still
And
is.
they have a big on the air deal every year. So get involved with that. But my second question is, when you go to these schools, what kind of gear do you use as far as HF transmitting and antennas and stuff like that?
Well, through some of the donations and my own funds, I've got a little portable ICOM 7300 that I take with me. I have an old VHS tripod that I bought a complete set of those ham sticks, both as a vertical and as two pieces as a dipole. Um, and with this coming up this year with the trailer, I can just bring the trailer. Everything's mounted on the roof rack. So I don't carry a lot of stuff with me. Um, it's not always necessary to, especially if it's an introductory thing to get people on the air, but you can do a demonstration in terms of what's being heard on any band with a pretty easy antenna, stuff that they've never heard before. So I travel light, except when I get into like the club session. The school that I have in Cleveland, we have a dipole on the roof. We have everything stored in the room, and I get there an hour before everybody shows upstairs like a herd of elephants, and we get everything tested and connected. That's the plan as well for the blind center, is to have the station's infrastructure there, and then just bring the transceiver and the talking watt meter and that kind of stuff with me until they either get somebody licensed there that can co-control op with me, um, or maybe, who knows, maybe the executive director will find so much interest in this he'll get a license himself. I mean, he's talked about applying for grants to do some of this stuff, and he can certainly do that. That would lighten my load a little bit. But I try to do it as easy as I can, because a lot of this stuff has to be portable. But it would be nice if all I had to do was just show up on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or a Thursday that they're there, and just have fun with them. But each situation is a little different. And certainly when you're on the front end with them, when they really don't, there's interest, but you don't, and there's enthusiasm with this group, but you don't know how large of an audience it will grow to. So when I start a club, I'm not expecting them to do any kind of a cash outlay to buy equipment when there's really nobody there that has the license or the expertise to manage it. If they want to do that down the road, that's fine. But that's the way I'm running them. That's right, the way I'm running them now. It would be nice if I didn't have to. Certainly would be easier.
Anything else, Marvin?
No, just a comment. You were talking about the ham station at Seeing Eye and other places. When I worked for Seeing Eye, I was the control operator for the ham station at Seeing Eye, and we had several hams come in. So there are lots of blind folks around that have their tickets and very much enjoy ham radio.
Yeah, I was going to say, and it's also just as important if they have their ticket and they don't have the capability of putting up an antenna. Maybe they're in an HOA. Maybe they just don't have the economic wherewithal to afford some of this stuff. But the beauty of it is if we have a place where they can get together, we all win. We get folks who learn more, who decide they're going to upgrade. We get the opportunities for maybe a family thing, where they can bring their family with them. And I don't know if you guys have heard of the Santa Net. Can you imagine what it would be like bringing grandchildren to the Santa Net and do it from from a local center like this, oh my God. Um, Give me a shot at that. I would be incredible. Um, but you know, like anything else, it just takes time to develop this stuff. I have approached the local Boy Scouts, the group that's in the Cleveland area. Haven't really latched onto this. So I haven't done much with the Boy Scouts, but that's my experience with this area. That certainly doesn't mean that it won't be successful where you folks are at or in anybody
Maybe it's
else.
time to try the Girl Scouts.
Oh yeah, and you got to remind them too that there is a merit badge for that.
Yep, yep. ARRL has a special merit badge for the Girl Scouts that they worked with the Greater Council of Atlanta. That from in talking to the ARRL, they've never had anybody apply for it.
That's too bad.
Yeah, it's like it's just sitting there. Um, and I even bought the patches, with the idea because I was talking to a couple of Girl Scout troops about maybe being their patch counselor. But there was a lot of upheaval in the Girl Scouts in northeastern Ohio, so that didn't go anywhere either. So, but there's so much opportunity here, and especially when, like with the Cleveland Site Center, I really wanted to be a part of that because they come down there. It's a focal point for all kinds of different services for those folks. And while they're waiting for their appointments, or maybe when they're done and they're just waiting for the bus, or they just want to spend a couple hours playing radio, it would be the perfect venue. But the management there just is, I don't understand it. But that's all the more reason to go with when people are interested, as opposed to spending an inordinate amount of time with people who aren't.
Yeah, and maybe it'll be catching. Maybe they'll come back and be
I'm
interested
hoping.
one day.
I am hoping that I get a call from them someday saying, "Why haven't you come down here and talk to us?"
I hope so too.
And I go, "I'm looking for that day, and I'm really hoping that it happens before that I leave this earth, because I would love to have the conversation." But the management there is the same as it remains the same as it was when I approached them initially. When I went down there, I had a group of 25. I had people bobbing their heads. I was ready to run. Now I'm much more capable than I was then. I have portable equipment. I've got a complete trailer. I've got every possible scenario. And at the end of that particular meeting, the young lady that helped me coordinate the meeting there said, "Well, the next step is to send an email to the CEO and tell him you'd like to go, have some further discussions and see if we can make this happen." And I did that. And a few days after that, I got an email from their public information officer saying that I violated their protocol and I had no right to talk to him. And it's like, what?
Oh,
I as long as the existing management there is in place, I don't see any future. And
yeah.
that's about I've never had a door slam like that before.
Yeah, that's too bad.
But that's okay. I'm hoping somebody down here in Akron says, "Listen, my friend up there lives in Cleveland and he can't, I says, "Well, then tell him to talk to management." Yeah.
Yeah, those things happen sometimes,
Yeah,
and
and it's okay.
it may take a while.
I was pretty surprised. I know I didn't do anything wrong. I told him I am not an employee. I was
Yeah.
encouraged to do this. I'm not really responsible to follow your protocols because I don't know what they are.
Right, exactly.
At that point, thank you. Maybe some other time. So that's too bad, because that's a large building, a lot of activity there. It would have been a gold mine.
Yeah, it is too bad. Let me
but-
check and see if anyone else would like to contribute to the conversation. Again, before we bring this to a close, anyone else have a comment or question?
Yeah, I got two things for you, Anthony Lamb.
Go ahead.
One, I'm thinking maybe that with that organization, probably the best bet would be to go to their board, and present it to them, because they have probably more positive thinkers on there. And
I
to
hope
Joel,
so.
when you're talking to the school for the blind, you know, in the 60s and 70s, and even in the early 80s, a lot of these schools had complete stations set up. I know in the New York Institute, they actually, when Bob Gunderson was alive, he actually had a radio lab, and people were working on transmitters, and of course that was all tube stuff.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience. And I missed that with him because I was so involved in the music scene, so I didn't get my license till later on. I was hoping that Steve WB2K TV would get on tonight, but I tried to get him. He wasn't available because he was part of that group and could tell you about those laboratory experiences. And I think one of the things that's so successful with the kids is that it gives them something to belong to, and that's so important.
It
You know,
is.
down here we have success because of the hurricanes and all the communication goes out, and ham radio is it. So people are really encouraged to get their license.
Yeah, those are great points, and it's so fascinating to see. It's almost like you're sort of showing us, Jeff, this in a way has come full circle. Like, you know, for a while, a lot of these schools for the blind and other centers for the blind, ham radio kind of disappeared. But I'm sure left with the feeling that we're starting to see some inkling of evidence that it's coming back. And so that's a really cool thing to that you're sharing with us, and I appreciate that.
Well, I'm encouraged, and I'm really hoping that that what I do not only changes somebody else's life, um, but it also brings new people into the hobby. I haven't had anybody yet approach me and saying, I want to be licensed. How do we do this? Can you, and I'll coach them as to the end of the earth. Um, and or put him in touch with who needs to be, you know, to facilitate that. I haven't had that experience quite yet, but I've only dealt with these. Like I said, these are kids. They've been with me for 2 years. We'll see if it materializes, but nobody says that if they don't come to the club meetings anymore, that 10 years down the road, though, they won't want to revisit it.
Exactly.
So my goal has always been to put it to try to plant a seed. If it turns out that it goes to another level, that's fine. But I'm not there to push people. I'm not there to make them feel like this is a class, that they have to take tests, that they have to perform. Even during the contest, I'm not tapping them on the shoulder to tell them you got to go faster. It, None of that. They get that from other things. They don't need, you know, that doesn't that's not a value, and that's not the kind of encouraging atmosphere I'm trying to project. So it would be nice if somebody does step forward and say, you know, I really want to do this. I like it, because especially for the blind community, for the, you know, and I'm hoping I don't offend anybody, but this is about as close to being without barriers and being and participating in society as a complete, unimpeded and on a level playing field that they're not used to. Um, and I think that has value to me, and from the sound of it, it's got value to them.
It does. It does have value. And I think, you know, it's been fun to sort of see this Techzoom unfold tonight, and everybody jumping in and participating and offering challenges and asking questions and feeding ideas. It's been a creative process for all of us. And I appreciate you being here, Jeff, and kind of stimulating this discussion. I have enjoyed it. And I think people are going to enjoy listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube. But we'll go ahead and bring it to a close here and thank everyone who's been here participating, and also thank everyone who listens in the future. And especially thank you, Jeff, for taking time out of your schedule to come and talk to us about this. Appreciate you being here.
Well, I thank you for the opportunity, because when we all work together, everybody wins. And
Absolutely.
I'm really looking forward to working with the Blind Center, and whatever else happens to cross my path. And it gives me a really good reason to get up every day, and giving people experiences that they wouldn't normally have, and that's a good thing to have.
Yeah, very good. Well, I've been honored to be your host this evening on the January 2025 Tech Zoom. Again, my name is Robert, NC5R. It's been my pleasure, and we will be back with more Tech Zooms as 2025 rolls along, and I can't wait to see what happens next. But in the meantime, 73 from the CQ Blind Hams podcasters and everybody, do take care. So long, you all.
73s, folks. Nice. Thanks for having me.
Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and visit www.blindhams.com.